Japa. Once a person is committed to mentally repeating a given chant, his or her mind automatically goes to japa whenever it is free. Just as water draining from mountains creates new ravines, a new track is created towards which the mind repeatedly goes. In this way, japa becomes a way of keeping the mind meaningfully occupied. As well as being useful activity, it is also a prayerful one. Eventually, a time comes when the mind enjoys a certain composure. Because you appreciate any distraction or agitation is transitory, you do not come under its spell. A mind that knows this has a certain depth, a certain tranquility, even before such agitation begins. In conjunction with vision of teaching that you are the whole, japa is very effective. Even without any exposure to Vedanta, japa is beneficial in that it keeps the mind meaningfully occupied, being aware of the silence. Japa is a tool that enables you to negate any distracting or improper thought by replacing it with chosen chant. It gives you an occasion to eliminate chain thinking and to be aware of the interval, the silence between thoughts. This is why I refer to the japa as a discipline. In keeping with teaching, you understand the silence as something natural. You also develop the capacity to nip in bud any thought you do not care to have. In all these ways, then, japa is helpful in gaining mastery over your mind. Sound as a technique. A common practice among many meditators in West is to chant invocatory syllables called bijaksharas, shreem, hreem, etc., traditionally used to invoke particular deities for purposes of meditation. When these sounds or any other single syllable words such as Ram and Syam are chanted, the mind is naturally going to have a particular occupation. Because chant is repetitive, chain thinking is eliminated. That any sound will work as a technique was demonstrated by one scientist using a meaningless sound and recording changes in various human functions. While subject chanted this sound, his thought processes and metabolism slowed down significantly. His BP also came down and his heart beat rhythmically. Since the person was sitting quietly, his mind occupied with the repetition of the meaningless sound, these findings are not surprising. Had he thought of some problem he was having, he would not have begun to fume and his he would have begun to fume and his heartbeat would naturally have increased. Based on results of his study, the scientist wrote a paper in which he concluded a special chant or mantra is not required. The repetition of any sound, even a meaningless sound, could produce the benefits he had recorded. As a technique, any sound that is repeated will work in the same way as any other sound, but in what way it will work? For some time, no doubt, the body and mind will be quieter. But then, you may be amused. You are sitting and chanting a meaningless sound. Is it not amusing to set aside a time each day to chant gring, gring, gring so seriously? I know I would be amused. Something would tell me, idiot, what are you doing? Then I would say, be quiet. You are always criticizing. You don't believe in anything. Keep chanting. Again, gring, gring, gring. What is this gring? Someone would ask from inside. It is a meaningless sound, would be the reply. Then, a meaningless sound? Why are you chanting a meaningless sound? It is called, be quiet. I told you not to criticize. Gring, 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 gring. Then again from inside, did you pay for this? Why don't you change gring into ring or something, some other sound? Why not? Be quiet. This sound was specially chosen for me. Bring, 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 bring. it would be very difficult for me to chant this meaningless sound. Anything you do should be meaningful. It is very difficult, therefore, to seriously sit and chant a meaningless sound. You may not know the proper meaning of a chant, but you need to know that it is meaningful. If it is the Lord's name, you may not understand its full meaning, but because you know it means the Lord, you have enough understanding to chant it seriously. Gayatri Mantra. In India, it's quite common for a child to be initiated into a mantra called Gayatri. The person who initiated me into Gayatri did not teach me its entire meaning. He only said it was a prayer asking the Lord to give me a bright mind, and that if I repeated it in this manner, I'd have a bright mind. Gayatri is a Sanskrit prayer to Lord Surya, the sun, who stands for all-knowing Lord, who makes your mind brilliant. This is what I was told. And although I was not given its entire meaning, it was meaningful to me because it was a prayer. Later, of course, gained an appreciation of its meaning. In this way, the mantra and others serve as a technique, enabling a young child to learn how to use his or her own mind. It works because when child chants the mantra, the mind will wander. The child then directs it back to chant, thereby learning how to use the mind. This is more important. Therefore, at a young age, a child gets an insight into his or her mind, which is not an ordinary thing. To know how mind works is a great blessing. Even if we do not understand Gayatri or any other mantra completely, still we know it's a prayer whose meaning we can come to understand. A meaningful chant. If a sound that has no meaning is chanted, it can serve as a technique. And for the purposes I have mentioned, it looks as though any chant will work. But all sounds you repeat will not work because you cannot give meaning to a chant that is meaningless. And therefore, you cannot be serious about it. Suppose, however, you chant a word that does have a meaning, like carrot, 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 or zucchini, 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 zucchini. We have varieties of meaningful words. Even the word cookie, 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 cookie. Why not? Any meaningful word is definitely a step ahead of a meaningless word. But something more is required for it to work as a japa. A meaningless word will not bring anything to your mind, and a meaningful word will cause your mind to be full of carrots, zucchinis, cookies, or whatever. Therefore, neither of these kinds of words will work. A name for the Lord. Instead, you choose one meaningful word that covers the whole creation. A word that is not one of the many objects in the world. A meaningless sound does not indicate any object, whereas a meaningful sound includes everything without indicating any one object. Since all objects are included in form of Lord, nothing is omitted when you repeat Lord's name. In this way, the meaningful chant becomes all-inclusive. All words are included in one chosen word. All names in all languages are also included. Traditionally, the word can vary. You can say Siva, Rama, Krishna, Jesus, or Allah. But in your mind, the word chosen should stand for everything. Because the word does not stand for any one thing, you will not be reminded of a given object when you chant it. A mantra that is traditionally given. Also, you are related to the Lord whose name you repeat. As a devotee, you are related. The relationship being between devotee and the altar of your devotion alone. One recognizes the Lord in a given name, or recognizing the Lord a name is given. That name can be given traditionally or by education. If it is traditionally given, the word and Lord are already bridged in your sight. This bridge is a blessing because the word immediately strikes in your mind as the Lord. Whether by tradition or by education, the word and its meaning must become connected in your mind. To the meaning of a word, known what you as the Lord, you are a devotee. The devotee is the fundamental person who assumes a variety of relative roles such as father, mother, wife, husband, brother, and sister. If you are an individual, you are first related to the total, and only afterwards are you related individually. I am related to the total. Individuality is possible only when I carve myself out as an entity from the total. The one who identifies with a given physical body, mind, sense complex is an individual. The individual is naturally related to the total because from this total alone he or she is carved out as an entity, just as a tree has an individuality carved out from the whole. The forest. The forest includes tree, but tree does not include forest. In this way, there is an individual, and his or her Lord is the total. The Lord is a being, and I am a being. The Lord is looked upon by an omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Thus, an individual, my relationship with the total is fundamental, the total being the basis for an individual. The individual entity is also related, but relatively, to all other individuals with whom he or she comes in contact: parents, aunts, uncles, husband, wife, children, neighbors, friends. And who is the person who is related? The person is fundamentally a devotee. This devotee is related to another person by assuming the role of son or daughter, sister or brother, niece or nephew, parent, and so on. Therefore, one becomes a devotee son or daughter, a devotee wife or husband, a devotee mother or father, a devotee friend, a devotee employee or employer, a devotee thinker, and a devotee seer. Invoking the devotee then becomes fundamental. It is this devotee, the devotee that is invoked when one repeats the name of Lord, a name being not separate from the meaning. When word is repeated, the meaning naturally strikes. Once you know the meaning of any word, you cannot separate the word from its meaning. For example, try repeating the word car without thinking of a car. It is impossible. A word and its meaning are inseparable. Because I am related in this form to the meaning of the name of the Lord, the total, I naturally do not chant as a husband or a wife, aunt or uncle, cousin, son or daughter. Thus, I am free from distractions of these relative roles. If a person chants as a father, he'll have a lot of problems. Suppose, being a devotee of Shiva, he named his son Subramanya, Subbu. Subramanya is the name of Shiva's son. Therefore, when the father repeats Lord Shiva's name, what happens? Subbu comes into mind, one who does not study as he should. Because the Shiva Subbu association, all kinds of agitations will come. Thus, if father chants, Subbu will definitely come along with all of the fatherly concerns. Suppose, however, the devotee is invoked by the same person, the Lord, and the simple relationship between them is recognized. The devotee alone is there when the person chants, the role of father being relegated to a relative role assumed by the devotee. In the devotee-Lord relationship, there will be none of the distractions attached to the relative roles assumed by the devotee. Chants and mantras. There are words that are sometimes chanted that are not mantras at all. Shivoham, Shivoham, or Soham, Soham. For example, Soham means here I am, I am, he referring to Lord. Nowhere in scriptures does it say Soham is a mantra. Soham is a fact, in fact. It is a sentence to be understood. It means Tat Tvamasi, you are that. If you are the Lord, or if the Lord is you, there must be some non-difference. Because the differences are obvious to you, you need not inquire into them further. The non-difference is what you need to know and is the subject matter of the entire teaching of Vedanta. Therefore, sentences that are statements of facts are not mantras. Japa is a mental prayer. A japa is a word, sentence, or group of sentences whose meaning is the Lord. wherein individual invokes or salutes a particular deity as Lord. It is neither a meaningless sound nor does it denote a particular object like zucchini. Its meaning is the Lord, through which devotee is invoked. Therefore, japa not only serves as a technique but as a mental prayer. Only when repetition is a mental prayer is it called the japa. Japa is recognized as an indirect means for gaining liberation because it destroys all obstructions and impurities, thereby preparing the mind for the knowledge that is liberation. In 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna says, there are many forms of rituals, many means through which I am invoked, but among them I am japa. Japa, therefore, is something to be done as the Lord Himself is in the form of Krishna has said. There is no activity more efficacious than the japa.